you have to let everyone know around you,
sure.
right? It's a little bit of a disclaimer. But, you know, because I was blogging about it, I started a blog, and I was actually, you know, I ended up preempting the loss of my hair by shaving my head. And that was something that I discussed with Cindy. We used to have the most fascinating discussions because, again, you know, that kind of support is essential. You know, as much as your friends and your caregivers want to support you, it's really important to obviously connect with people who are going through the same thing. You know, Cindy was one example. She didn't have multiple myeloma, but it was similar enough that she was, you know, a great resource and a great sister in arms. But then again, that's where these other resources are important, the online resources, you know, connecting with the multiple myeloma community. But anyways, we used to have the most fascinating of discussions about medical masks and, you know, and when you should shave your hair and how you should go about it and the right creams for treating your extra dry skin, because chemo takes a toll on your skin.
Yes,
and,
very much.
And you know, what do you do about losing your lashes and things like that? And we used to have a laugh about it. So.
Well, I had sort of cancer light. I just had light chemo, and that was okay. And I beat it, and it wasn't nearly as severe as yours. Well, but I know the drill. And I felt blessed because my hair just thinned. I thought, this is good, it's just thinning.
Well, I call this right now my chemo cut, and it's actually coming back thicker and you know, a better texture than ever before. So I call this phase my rebirth on so many levels because I went through a stem cell transplant, which isn't necessarily the protocol for every myeloma patient, but was my protocol, and I reacted really positively, touch wood, to it.
Yes, and on a down day. When your mental state is just not there. Well, maybe you were happy through it all, but I rather doubt it. I don't think anybody is. But you know, when you feel vulnerable and why me and all of that, who did you reach out to?
You know, it was interesting because I think when I was in the process of, in the actual crisis, I felt so well supported because you have a routine, you know, you've got the hospital staff, you have doctors, you have people rallying around you. So in a very real way, I actually managed to be quite the trooper during that period of time. Where I felt and where I'm still having struggles and conflicts, and again, I certainly don't want to give out that message that, you know, wow, it's been a picnic. Of course not. There's been very, very dark moments as well. But I feel like the healing process, which takes place really after the crisis has passed, is a very misunderstood time in most cancer patients' life. Like, what do you do after the hospital? After you're let out, you know, that's when, in a sense, the bottom sometimes drops out, because that you know, crack team or that support team is not necessarily around you anymore. But that's when the real work of healing is done.
That's very interesting. Yes.
So that's
when you're feeling you're most vulnerable because you can't call your radiologist or your oncologist every single minute.
You're officially, you know, better. You're well. So then, you know, then you get the reactions of like, well, now back on your horse again. You may not be ready for that.
Right.
And essentially also, I think, again, you know, you've been running on adrenaline for that period of time during the crisis, and what ends up happening is when you sit back and your body is actually, as I said, taking the healing, that's when you take stock, and even emotionally, I feel that that's where a lot of stuff has been bubbling up. So that's where I think, again, you need probably, you know, the emotional support, the psychological support, the counseling. That's where but you know, it's also really important to be gentle with yourself and to allow yourself to feel those things, you know, and process whatever it is that you've been through.
Exactly. You take the reins and you ride the horse, which you're doing now.
But what I'm trying to say is that often, you know, in our society, we have people, the question I dread is, okay, well, what next now? Now you're fine. So, like, what are you going to do next?
Do I have to be a better person? Maybe. Because you saved my sorry neck.
Yeah.
Maybe I do. But, you know, often through your healing, I'm sure, instead of doing things like healing, you were going to meetings and you were signing contracts and you were writing scripts or hearing scripts and still trying to work. Because a girl does have to make a living.
Yes, exactly. And then that brings up the question, when do we allow ourselves just to be? You know, even if you can. And I realize, you know, so it's been such a journey. There's a very interesting term that I've actually borrowed from a friend of mine who's also had cancer, and it's cancer graduate.
Oh,
as opposed to survivor. Because, you know, when you pass through this particular program, you do come out wiser on so many levels on the other side. You know?
And if we could get in our heads, mostly, it's just another chronic disease, another lousy disease, if you could think of it that way. But you know the fear. You know the fear. When somebody says you have cancer.
Of course.
It's worse than you have heart problems. I think. I don't know. I haven't had heart problems, but I know that fear.
I've had heartbreak.
Heartbreak too.
But fear, absolutely, that's one part of the experience. And as I said, allowing yourself, allowing yourself to process those emotions, to be vulnerable is really essential. But that's why I like, again, going back to the word graduate, because when you say survivor, it just implies this real struggle and conflict. And there's a time to be tough and there's a time to be vulnerable. And within that, the word graduate, to me, kind of covers the entire spectrum of the experience.
Right. And when you go back and look at yourself on the cover of magazines, 1, 2, 3 magazines, and your modeling days and all of that, does it inspire you, or do you think, did that, on to movies?
Like I said, I'm a real believer in forward thinking all the time. I try not to look into the rear view mirror as much. But what I did do, again, is it gave me a platform, my public persona, both here and in India, which is in fact a little bit different, gave me a platform from which to, again, create as much awareness about the disease, about the phenomenon of going through the cancer journey, covering the fact that, what was really surprising to me is not just the fear, but the fact that it's almost still a bit of a taboo. That was really eye-opening to me, because I felt like, okay, I've been dealt this card, but like, why should I feel ashamed of it?
Yes, exactly.
So, that was one part of the reason why I kept on, being photographed. I was photographed without my hair. I posted those photographs on my blog. I've been photographed for magazine covers, and I've been photographed, in my fullness and my, my steroid kind of lushness, as I called it.
You're beautiful without your hair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Lisa Ray, she's an actor and star of the Oscar-nominated film Water, and she's doing other work as well, of course.